No worries. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk. I think it's perhaps the first time that the bus company here in Bendigo has been able to perhaps given the opportunity to make a presentation at this level. So, we thank you very much for that. The fact that I haven't done it before, I don't have a fancy slide presentation and pretty pictures to put up there, so I'm afraid I'm just going to rattle off from a few notes, and it is relatively brief. There is quite an extensive presentation. We could talk quite extensively about, the bus network here in Bendigo, and I'm sure you all have a fairly strong opinion on it all. I'm just probably curious, perhaps a quick show of hands of those in the room who actually regularly use the bus network, travel on the bus. 5 people, 6. For those who don't use it, and if you're going to report and make comment on it, I invite you to please come along and try it. I would feel that perhaps most of you have probably got a Mikey card. Is there anybody in the room who don't have a Mikey card? 1, 2 people don't have, 3 people don't. Barry, you haven't got a Mikey card. So most of you do have Mikey cards, and most of you perhaps haven't travelled on the bus. So I do invite you to please come along and give it a try, and experience it, and then perhaps we're all in a better opinion or in a better place to make some sort of comment about us. Anyway, look, my name's Glen, Chistian, Manager Director of Chistian's Bus Company. We've been in the bus business for approximately 34 years. We operate bus services throughout regional Victoria, consisting of 160 buses, 200 staff. The services, we run a mixture of school, city and town services, V-line intertown services, charter and tour coaches, and hire and drive minibuses. Our major centres we operate out of are Ararat, Bendigo, Colac, Ocean Grove and Warrnambool, Bendigo representing our single largest depot. In 1995, Chistian's Bus Company purchased the urban service from Kangaroo Freight Bus Lines. In 2009, we purchased Walker's Bus Company. This has allowed us to integrate services, buses, mechanics and admin staff into one entity. We have an experienced team and a modern fleet of vehicles. Compliance is an essential part of operating buses, and we have invested heavily in technology, training and KPIs to maintain a high standard of delivery determined by the regulators. We understand that compliance is an important part of providing a bus service, but it does utilise a lot of staff time and resources. A brief history, before 1970, bus services were offered as per the initiative of private bus operators relying heavily on fare box revenue. In 1971, the government of the day decided that trams in Bendigo and Ballarat were no longer economically viable, and so replaced them with a bus network. Routes beyond the CBD were established around school locations, industrial estates and previous tram network. The earlier timetables had a coverage which on some routes exceeds the current use. I think that's important. Major routes back then operated from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday to Friday, on a 20-minute peak, a 30-minute off-peak, an hourly evening service up to 11 p.m. In 1998, routes were restructured to address passenger travel patterns, and this was the first change since 1972. In 2006, $10.5 billion was committed to Victoria's transport network. In 2008, Bendigo received part of this funding. That funding was called Meeting Our Transport Challenges, or it got the name MOTSI. Service coverage was increased by approximately 40%, resulting in an increased patronage of almost 22%. So with approximately 1.3 million passengers per annum across the Bendigo network, this represents some very significant numbers. It does, however, demonstrate the public's willingness to utilise public transport. but at the same time has indicated to authorities that perhaps the current infrastructure in certain areas is inadequate. And I obviously refer to Mitchell Street. Our operational responsibilities include the purchase and maintenance of all vehicles. Our fleet size here in Bendigo is 56 buses. We have an average age of 6 years. New buses purchased for route service are ultra-low floor, which means that all our major timetable routes are now DDA compliant. That is, they're wheelchair accessible. That is DDA compliance needs to be 100% by 2020, so we're 6 years ahead of schedule. For the last 10 years, all new buses purchased have been fully air-conditioned, and for the last 5 years, all have been equipped with CCTV, a very useful piece of equipment. The employment of staff is also our responsibility. We employ 83 staff here in Bendigo with an average age of 53. Our average length of employment is 9.6 years. Reliability and stability are important attributes in our staff as this carries through to our service delivery. The bus is the only form of public transport where the passenger can freely communicate with the driver. Think about that. This provides the customer with a degree of comfort, but it also makes a work environment which the driver can find challenging and must be able to adapt to. Keeping to timetable can be challenging when dealing with traffic congestion, heavy loadings, roadworks and ticketing issues. Keeping to timetables is also our responsibility. In 2008, Bendigo changed to a clock-face timetable. That is, if you want to get on a particular point at 10 past the hour or 22 the hour, the bus should go past that point. It certainly saves you carrying around a 53-page document a booklet in your back pocket to want to know what time the bus is coming. So it's easy to interpret in that respect. The downside is that it's not flexible when dealing with some minor changes, particularly when V-Line changed their timetable out of Melbourne. That has a domino effect then beyond from what perhaps was meeting the train by 2 minutes is now suddenly missing it by 2 minutes. Then to go and change obviously to change the timetable back to suit that, retain the clock face, that sort of system is difficult to try and work through. But traffic congestion and passenger loadings have affected our current timetable, and we eagerly await a timetable review and reprint. Just on Myki, in 2009 the Myki ticketing system was introduced in Bendigo, Ballarat, Geelong and Latrobe Valley. There was a trial period which lasted for 4 years before the system went live in Melbourne. For the customer, the system worked reasonably well, and the Bendigo public were very supportive of it. There were some teething issues, but most of those were really to do with what they call back office and data collection. Smart card technology is now the norm in many cities around the world. Swipe on, swipe off technique presents an easy and efficient method to board the bus. In relation to PTV are the regulator and administrator of public transport. They do, however, come under the mechanism of Treasury, and we understand that. We consistently communicate and liaise with PTV on all service deliveries. PTV have recently had a little change in their structure. There are now no field officers based here in Bendigo. We used to deal with the field officers on a daily basis 3 or 4 times a day. But I believe as a community, council group and as a bus operator, this can, however, provide us with an opportunity to have a greater input in the delivery service levels and coverage of public transport. The onus is on us to provide a platform that regulators, administrators, politicians can communicate with us on. We need to be proactive. I would like to mention a few points worth discussing. Costs may be a bit prohibitive on some of these, but some not so. We could have a better service frequency and coverage to provide more convenient access to the new Bendigo Hospital. This is an essential service. For some, it is their primary means of getting to healthcare and other services. a bit close to my heart at the moment. I refer particularly to elderly parents who live at home and not able to drive but need access to healthcare on a weekly basis. We could provide better connectivity with an efficient transport hub at the station, which caters for communities. PTV have already mentioned this, I know. But to cater for commuters changing routes on the network, travelling into Bendigo or transferring to, or as well as those travelling into Bendigo and transferring onto the city bus network. There has been some work done already about that. The results from what I've seen have been a bit disappointing. Thank you, Phil. Phil and I we have emailed one another. There were some good ideas come out of that workshop, and it would be a pity to see them fade into the distance. We could seek transport requirements from the larger employers in Bendigo and provide incentives to encourage staff to use the bus system with promotional programs. I think particularly perhaps something like Bendigo Bank, Bendigo City Council. This would be an extension of their sustainable declarations. In partnership with the council, we could create more interaction with groups with special needs. We have done this on on a couple of occasions. Timetable explanation and bus loading demonstrations have been very successful. Provide increased coverage at weekends. The weekend now has an increase in demand by the worker and provides a more relaxed environment for others who may have time to explore the use of public transport. We do have the situation here in Bendigo on some services, particularly where you have your Easter break and your Christmas break. It's nearly 4 days before someone sees a bus come back again on their service. Pretty hard to take public transport seriously when that's the sort of service level that you get. And one little pet of mine, and we can't necessarily all agree with this even in our own environment, but with the bus routing, and I believe it's something that's been there for a long time, and to change it, I keep being told that, oh, we can't do that. But it's to create one route through a bus system. That is like have something like a red line, a blue line. No doubt some of you are familiar with the London Tube. No, it's one line that goes through. Here we have a situation where you're standing out at a bus stop at a Kangaroo Flat. The post says you're on route 1, you want to get on the bus, and the one coming at you says number 5. I understand it's going through to number 5, but to the uninitiated, that does seem a bit complex to me, and I'm not sure why that's the case. Well, I do know why, we need to change it. Just 2 stats I'd like to leave you with. One full bus trip equals 30 cars off the road. $1 billion will buy you 7 kilometres of subway, 14 kilometres of rail, 40 kilometres of light rail, or 426 kilometres of what they call bus rapid transit. That's a bus in a dedicated lane. The bus does provide a very economical, flexible and an efficient form of public transport. Thank you.